Mother Fluffers. I'm Jimmy.
And I'm Alice.
And this is the Signal 2 podcast.
I literally almost didn't press record again.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Not again. Not again.
I know.
I know. Welcome, everybody. First of all, we apologize. At the end of last episode, we did make a promise that we wouldn't make you wait a whole week. However, Nino decided to get involved, or whatever his name is. You're already fogging up. We've been seeing this episode's been going for 32 seconds and you're fogging up. But this is the thing. It's El Nino decided to get involved and the temperature was very mucho hotto. And in this room, it is just a giant fireball.
Yeah,
so there was just no way we could have recorded, unfortunately. So yeah, we apologize for that.
We hope you survived it because it was fucking warm.
It was warm. We were in the city basically all day Saturday.
Yeah.
My biggest issue was not the heat. It was my shoes were terrible. So I ended up with the dogs just walked in like dripping water everywhere. Hey, bro.
He just had a drink of water.
And,
One day we'll try and get him in like the film.
yeah. If you've never quite seen a dog drink unless you've seen a German Shepherd drink water.
It's ridiculous. It's
But
ridiculous.
But yeah, we hope you're all doing well and you're staying cool because it is going to be a hot one.
Yeah, well, Thursday is supposed to be fuck off hot again as well.
Yeah, 38 or something. So yeah, how are you going? You're sick.
I'm sick. It's the worst.
Sick of this shit.
Especially as we go away on Thursday week. So I went to the doctor.
We leave on Wednesday, but anyway.
Oh, shit. Wednesday week. So I went to the doctor and he gave me antibiotics because he's like, normally I just tell you to write it out and it will take about 2 or 3 weeks to write it out. But he's like, you're going to New York, so here's some antibiotics.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's not very good. But
It is up to fine. It was my turn to be sick, to
It
be
was.
fair.
It was.
I feel like all we do is complain that we're sick, hot and delayed. That's signal 2.
that's Signal 2. That's going to be on the
We're
merch.
sick, hot and delayed.
Yeah. Actually, holy shit, that is dope. Those of you in the Facebook group, thank you very much. We've just put up a post tonight asking for your merch ideas because it is in the works. We have had quite a few people ask, and we promise. It's just, I don't know. We wanted to do it right. We did order like a couple of samples just for ourselves. Got some stuff made up, and it was just terrible. Like it was all right.
Well, I think
It's
since
just
like,
very long. Like the t-shirts were long, and it's just like eh.
And I think back then we didn't really have the established base of things that are distinctly Signal 2. Like, for example, Crime Junkie has Be Weird, Be Rude, Stay Alive, or like Full Body Chills, and like Morbid has Keep It Weird.
Yeah.
But we didn't have one of those yet. And then they've all sort of just come very organically from episodes.
That's right. And so, yeah, some of I think Molly, which I'm so happy. Thank you, Molly, she was like, it has to be Roly Poly Dumpling. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, I know, because you can't put fuck up, but yeah.
We're going to put Roly Poly Dumpling.
And then a few other people have suggested Mr. Reginald.
Mr. Reginald.
Which we were actually just discussing before this episode how we would do that.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and get those kind of things on there.
Yeah.
And obviously like a whoop whoop mother fluffers. But the last time we did it, it just wasn't good quality. Jimmy's in charge of this stuff because he's got a bit of a design background. I can't do shit.
Yeah.
Can't draw. Can't do that. I'm good at crime and this kind of stuff. He's good at making it look nice.
I'll pay that. That. So yes, it is in the works. So if you do have any feedback, if you're like, include this or whatever it is, we will let you know because we will also run a bit of a competition that if you can give me the video, it's actually a music video clip.
Oh yeah.
If you can give me the music video of which we got of where I found, whoop whoop, you'll get like a free merch pack or something like that.
Because in it, it's like because we started with whoop whoop motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And that's where it's from. So if you can give that to us, we'll give you like a couple of items of
Yeah, we'll
merch
give you a
because it
merch
is
pack.
so fucking obscure.
It's so obscure, but if you can find it, you're one of my people, and I love you to the day I die. But yeah, so we'll be running that. So if you're listening to this episode, you got a bit of a head start. The quote, the full line is whoop whoop motherfucker, and yeah. So if you can find it and it's the correct one, it can't just be like whoop whoop motherfucker in any of them. It's got to be the correct one. You'll get a free merch.
Because I feel like once you see that, it will
and
make
my
it,
undying respect, which I think is probably worth more. To be fair,
it's not. Because I feel like once you see it and you see the film clip, you're like, oh yeah, that tracks with you guys.
yeah, exactly.
Fucking hot messes.
Especially me.
Yeah.
It's like,
And if no one can guess it, we'll have to give some clues.
yeah, we'll do a bit of a countdown. And then I think Molly also mentioned, she was like, Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, so true. I feel so validated. I was like, fuck, it's not just me. Story time.
It's hard because I called you fucking James for 2 years.
Yeah. So story
out of
time.
my own stubbornness.
It's because when I first met Alice, like, yes, I went by James, but I mostly went by Jimmy. All my friends and everybody knew me as Jimmy and everything. But formerly I was James. And Alice was just like, no, you're not a Jimmy to me. I already know a Jimmy. And then so because
it was my good friend's husband and it was
doesn't
weird.
fucking matter. I'm your fiance. It's like, it's just so.
I've been single for a long time. I was very set in my ways.
So yes, if you ever wondered why it's sometimes the Jimmy,
I'm getting better.
you're getting better.
I'm getting significantly better.
But
also,
the fact that it was like the second most common, second thing,
Jesus.
I felt so validated. So thank you, Molly.
Also, on top of that, another one of our lovely listeners suggested we do like a Q&A.
Yes.
Where you guys can ask us questions. We'll give you answers. Kind of, you can ask us some personal stuff.
Anything and everything.
Maybe not anything.
I mean, they can ask her. We don't have to answer.
Well, that's true. So if you go onto our community page, join that. If you don't really want to join the community or anything like that, you can DM us. You can comment on a post.
Yep.
Do anything like that. And we will do our best to answer all the questions and you guys can get to know us a little bit better. And yeah, for that, we'll try and one day we'll show you how like schmozzle this room is and how tight, but we'll try and get a booper up for a second. He's sitting at the door asleep.
Yeah, he's a good boy. But just in the world of Australian true crime, I've been harping on about it the last few episodes, I think, but Shandy's legacy, it's on the back of Shandy's story. I think I was reading an article from November, I think, where they basically they've said that 40,000 cases have been affected.
Wow.
So if
we
you're
should do a shit chat on it.
We will. And that was something else that somebody,
we've
had another request. So we will do, we might, yeah, that's a good point. We'll, but yeah, if you're not sure what we're talking about, there was just a forensic lab that was just absolutely run into the ground by one or two people, and DNA wasn't tested properly, and it might have affected 40,000 cases dating back to 2007. Uh-oh. But yeah, so if you haven't listened to Shandy's story, and then make sure you get onto it. There was a tragic murder of up in Queensland of the wife, mother, and I think it was an 11-week-old baby. It was it's so sad. So
yeah, was that by an unknown offender? Have we found the offender yet?
Yeah, basically, I don't know his name, and good, because he doesn't deserve to know. But basically, the murder happened in August, and then a couple of days later, he actually reported it. Like he'd flown, and he'd flown, I don't know, somewhere else, and he reported it. But yeah, they found him.
Oh, okay, that's good.
He was like, he worked for, I don't know, some media. But yeah, pretty fucking horrific. So yeah, some bad shit happening at the moment, as always. But we live in the world of true crime. What do you expect?
We do.
Hey, yeah.
What are you drinking?
Oh yeah. So I am drinking from a sherry butt.
Meh.
No, I'm not. I'm cracking out the good stuff tonight. I'm drinking. So it's only because this case, in case you're not sure, this is episode 2 of Graeme Thorne. And so when I kind of went like, oh, it's a bit of an older case. When you think of like old vintage distilleries, like Glendronach is up there. So I was like, I'll try that. I'm going to give that a go. And I've already made a dent. So if you can see, I'm holding at the side. There's
like not
label.
tonight, just FYI. He
No,
hasn't
like right now.
Drunk 2/3 of a bottle.
None that you know of. But yeah, I'm drinking Glendronach. It's a single cask. It's from 1992. Their number one year is 1993. But it's a 1992 25-year-old single cask. Absolutely stunning. This is like sort of your, I don't know. They're super sherried fruits, like fruit cake, Christmas cake kind of spices, and that real lush, rich flavors. And it's just delicious. They don't come cheap, these bottles, but they're worth it. So
yeah.
And this is cask number 52. It was aged for 25 years in a sherry butt.
Terrible one.
Disappointing. It's because it's a synthetic cork.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Oh, but that smells so good. So yes, I shall be dining out on a Glendronach.
Nice. Should I give you a quick summary
Yeah,
of
definitely.
previous episodes?
Definitely.
Okay, we had Istvan. Istvan from Hungary. Came over to Australia in like the 50s. And he just did a bunch of shit. Married a couple of people, and we think perhaps
this is the worst rundown ever. Right. We have Istvan. He did a bunch of shit. Okay, part 2.
Part dos, fuck it. And then remember his second wife. She died when her brakes mysteriously failed.
Yes.
So we think possibly he might have had something to do with that. Then he met Magda. It was an affair because she was technically married at the time.
Yes.
But just like him, she had a very magnetic personality.
And he had a bit of an inferiority complex. Like he never felt like he was respected. Is that right?
He always believed he deserved more wealth and status than what he had. And that was his whole life goal, was to obtain wealth and status and then fake it till you make it until it actually happened.
But he was quite charming.
Very charming, very typical psychopath, very charming, could talk his way out of most things. But very important part of this is he has a very deep Hungarian accent.
Yes.
Which gets him in some shenanigans. Now, we have the Sydney Opera House being built in the 60s. Shitstorm, absolute clusterfuck. Therefore, they ran the Sydney Opera House lottery. And 10 lotteries were drawn between the 60s and 86.
Yo.
And one such winner was Basil Thorne and his wife Basil and his wife Frida. And they had 3 children, but the 2 that feature in this story are Graeme and Belinda.
Okay.
So they won close to over $5 million in today's money. That was obviously public because fuck privacy back then.
So the name and everything, address, everything was in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Istvan, as we now know, is now Stephen Bradley. And he sees not only their win, believing that he deserved that win because he'd obviously worked harder than Basil ever had in his life and he didn't deserve it. And
Basil was a travelling salesman. So
literally
really,
had worked a hard slog his entire life to earn a honest and very, very mediocre wage. And great parents.
And then after they won the lottery, they were like, no, we're not going to let it affect us. I'll keep working so we can maintain normality. But they did send Graeme to Scots College.
They'd already sent him to Scots.
Oh,
that was what they'd saved for.
Oh,
that's why they they'd scrimped and saved so he could get a good education.
There you go.
So around about the same time, Stephen saw that win in the newspaper. He also saw the article about kidnappings for ransom, which had never happened which had never happened in Australia before. We'd never had a crime like that. But he saw the one of the Peugeot kid.
Yeah.
And that was a successful in inverted commas, kidnapping for ransom.
Yeah.
So he decides at that moment that he's going to kidnap Graeme, who is the Thorne's child, who is 8 years old at the time.
Yep.
Demand £25,000, which is a quarter of their winnings.
Yep.
And then happy days, he'd have £25,000. He'd return Graeme. No harm, no foul in his mind. Therefore, he could get the status he deserved because about $1 million or so dollary dues. And off he could go and live his best life.
Mm-hmm.
So he essentially then stalks the family. And
I think it's important to note that Thorne's house was opposite a park that Graeme would often play. Mum would watch from the window and could see that he was playing with the rest of the neighbourhood kids. And also, importantly, he would walk himself to a corner shop every morning to go to school. And he was picked up by another mum and with kids, and they would drive.
Off he would go. And during this time, while he's collecting intel on the family, he goes to their house just after dinner.
Yes.
And poses as a private investigator. And that's kind of where he begins to unravel a little bit, because he first says he's looking for Mr. Bogmore. She says, no, ask the upstairs neighbour. They've been here longer. And then he says a different name, which now they're starting to piece together.
Given him.
Yeah, and now they're starting to piece together that maybe he's there for more suspicious reasons. They suspect from a company that's going to ask them for money because of their win. So that's kind of his plan at this point. So his plan is he will intercept Graeme on his walk to the corner store before he gets picked up.
Because he found out the name of the woman.
Yes. So he would say, she's called in sick, basically. Your mum, I know the parents' names. Your mum said to come with us. They're going to get angry if you don't come with me. He'll intercept, and then he'll take him to another location. He's figured out also at this point he's going to have to use physical force, because after a while Graham's going to figure it out that he's not going to Scots. School. He knows his route to Scots. And then he would send the family off to his personal family. So the Bradley family.
Yeah, because he was
would
living in
send them-
Clontarf.
He was living in Clontarf in that beautiful house I posted on
that he
the
put
Instagram.
up for sale.
Yes.
Because he was so sure he was going to get new money,
So
and he was
sure.
going around to
Cash.
all the different real estate agents being like, show me your finest house. I shall be coming into money.
Into cash money.
Actually, I'm not even going to fucking attempt a Hungarian accent. I will be cancelled. So
yeah.
move along.
Yeah. So he then decides to send the family off
Yep.
you pop.
Yep.
I'll send you to Sydney, then I'll join you, and he's going to announce we're going on an overseas holiday. Yay.
Whoop, whoop. Eat all the language. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
And so his plan is on the 7th of July, he's going to have removalists come to the house,
Yep.
take the stuff, kidnap Graeme, keep Graeme there, return him. House is handed over on the 8th,
Yes.
and then amazing.
I like it. And then that's
Yeah.
just still done.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Done.
So like I said, 7th of July, he's organised for removalists to come. 8th, he's going to kidnap. And like,
It's a tight timeline, right?
That's a very tight time. Oh my God, I've just realised I've got the iMac keyboard in front of me and the mouse, and it's just not connected to the laptop.
No, are we still recording?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you say so surely.
Shut up.
By the way, if you ever hear us go, Basil, that's from Faulty Towers.
Yeah.
So just if you're not sure, just the filling you in.
Bit of history.
Bit of history.
So like you kind of probably need more than a day, like just to, it takes time to get money and stuff like that. So he does end up making his family leave on the 6th, so he can kidnap on the 7th instead, as opposed to sending the family away on the 7th, and then the 8th is back up.
And then, but when are the people magickies coming?
Yeah, they're still coming like on the 7th.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a great plan.
So I'm confused. Won't they be there when he has the kid, or
Yep.
is he still kidnapping on the 8th?
Nah, still kidnapping on the 7th.
So he's just going to keep the kid downstairs. I say the kid. Bloody hell. He's going to keep Graeme
Yeah,
down.
basically.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
it's not-
It's a risky plan, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah. So Stephen then again changes his plans last minute, and he told Magda she was flying to Queensland instead on the morning of the 7th. He tells her this on the evening of the 6th. So she, sorry. She's obviously pissed off now because his antics are getting fucking tired.
Yeah.
And so they had a massive fight, and one so loud the neighbours even heard it. And this is like Clontarf. Like, we're not talking apartments. Like, these are big houses with a lot of separation.
Mm.
So Magda woke up the next morning to take the kids to Queensland, and Stephen's already gone. So she takes the kids, and
What was she
maybe
upset about, though?
because he keeps being like, this is the plan. And he always had these grandiose plans of how they were going to get a bigger house and do this. And she's like, shit, bro. Like,
Just like we're in a beautiful house now.
Beautiful house in
Just
Clontarf, calm
settle
yourself.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair.
So that morning, the 7th of July, Stephen had actually woken up early, ready for a day of kidnapping. So he had spread a picnic blanket on the back seat of his Ford station wagon and drove to Bondi, arriving at about 8:15. Now, these beginning stages were almost habit for him because he'd done them so many times.
Because he's been stalking them for a while.
Exactly. But obviously the stakes are higher this time. This is not a practice run. This is it. So he parks his car on the route he knew Graeme would take in the morning to go to the corner store, and he waited. Now, he's like, although people would likely see him, he made sure his car and his appearance seemed normal and of no interest. So he's kind of made sure to wear like very boring clothing and, with his iridescent blue Ford. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, because he got that because it...
Yeah, the G-O.
The G-O.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it totally didn't stand out.
Yeah, that
And
ridiculous.
it was iridescent.
It's like, I don't know if you've seen that Ford station wagon. It's that real typical, like has the flared end, like those old school, like those, like now would be worth a fortune and are so fucking rad. But back then would have been so normal.
Oh, yeah. Go mobile.
So Graeme would normally walk past at 8:25 a.m. But this morning, Graeme was running a little bit later because like kids and shit.
Yeah.
So he didn't leave the house until 8:30. And Frida rushes him out of the house. She's like, go. You're going to miss the lift. Like, you're running late. Now, although Graeme left late, he planned to do his usual like routine of going in and buying his chips, sitting on his case, munching on them until sort of Phyllis arrived. Now, as he walked to the corner store, he actually saw a school friend being driven to school, and that gives him a little wave. And they're like, see you at school, bye.
Yeah.
Now, soon after, Graeme approaches Stephen's car, and it's basically kind of semi-blocking the path. And as soon as Stephen catches a glimpse of him, he opens his door and positions himself in a way that he could speak to Graeme without it seeming like he was jumping out of the car to like grab him, basically.
To nab him, yeah.
Now, a passing car did need to avoid his open door,
Right.
to the open driver's side door, but he ignored it. Like, he's not being sus. Like, he's just... And as he approaches Graeme, he's like, oh, you must be Graeme. And Graeme nods, like, yeah, I'm Graeme. And then Stephen says his spiel about Phyllis being sick. I know Frida. He also states he's going to pick up the other boys because, you know, he's always with other boys. And they should head off now so they aren't late.
So it's important to know, I can't remember if we said this, but Graeme's 8.
8.
So he's a very innocent young kid at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And you start saying like your parents' names,
Yes.
your usual
Phyllis.
routine, like it's all these things kind of add up.
Yep.
And they was reassured. Plus, Stephen had that very magnetic personality, nice, kind smile, and he seemed trustworthy. And he's great. He's great with kids.
Yeah. Okay.
He was a great dad. Piece of shit, but great dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that was exactly what Graeme thought. He said like he looked like a dad, not a creepy guy.
Oh.
But Graeme had been warned a lot about stranger danger and all that kind of stuff, but that kind of dissipated for him because he believed it was a friend of his mum.
Yeah.
So it's not a stranger.
Yes.
So Graeme jumps in the front passenger seat without hesitation and Stephen closes the door and gets in the car himself. As they drove away, Graham's real lift to school, Phyllis, is pulling up outside the corner store. Now, she's surprised not to see Graeme standing there. He's like clockwork, but assumed he was still buying his chips. So she honked a horn in an attempt to get him to hurry up, but he didn't show. She then asked her son to run inside and grab him, but when he returned, he's like, well, Graham's not in there. So this was concerning, but like perhaps he's running late or sick. There's no mobile phones back then.
Yeah.
So either way, she makes her way to the Thorne residence just in case.
Oh, good.
Now, Frida was immediately shocked and worried. Graeme should have been there. She sent him off. Now, the friend reassures her and is like, perhaps one of the other people gave him a lift.
Yep.
You know, because friends often drive past. He waved at one, you
Yeah,
know.
of course.
She's like, I'm going to head straight to the school, drop my kids off, and then I'll go into the office and confirm that he's got to school and I'll call you. But a friend arrived at the school and their worst fears were confirmed. Graham's not there.
Jeez.
So the friend drove straight back to Bondi and told Frida the news. And Frida's obviously beside herself at this point, immediately calls police stating they'd recently won the lotto and her son's now missing and she fears the worst.
Oh, jeez.
Now, police were dispatched and arrived leisurely 20 minutes later. So they arrive about 9:30 a.m.
That's actually not too bad. When you
Yeah.
said that, I was like, well, I don't think that's that leisurely. It sounds like they're probably on it. Like 20 minutes is pretty good.
They do fucking well.
Yeah. And it sounds like Phyllis is such a good friend.
Yes.
Like she is on top of it.
Yeah. And Graeme was like such a cute little kid.
Yeah,
I think he
right.
would have endeared himself to everybody he met.
Oh, that's nice. That's lovely.
Yeah. So Stephen again knew Graham's going to eventually realise something is not right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he needed a private place on his route where he could turn this into a forcible abduction with no witnesses. Now, he'd actually before this scouted many places that would be private enough, and he decided on Centennial Park, which back in the 60s was not like it is today. It's not as sort of heavily frequented like by runners and all that kind of stuff. It's not like it was.
Even now, though, it does, because I used to run around Centennial Park, and it does have its little pockets.
Yeah, exactly. It's big.
It's big, and it's got its little secrets. So I imagine back then, even more so.
Exactly. And on the drive there, Graeme and Stephen chatted just like it was a regular car ride with a family friend.
Yeah.
Now here, Graeme would obviously started to show his first signs of nervousness as he entered the park because it's a weird place to pick up a kid because that's where he's saying we'll pick up the kid. Anyway, as Stephen parked the car and pretended to wait for that kid, Graeme was unaware of what was about to happen. So suddenly Stephen grabbed Graeme around the neck, pulled his head towards his lap and sort of like stuck it between his legs and the steering wheel, grabbed a cloth, put it over his mouth, and within about 30 seconds, Graeme was unconscious.
Like chloroform or something.
Exactly.
Right.
He then reaches over the back seat to where he'd laid out the picnic rug and placed the rug over an unconscious Graeme. Now, everything probably he's thinking has gone to plan, no hitches. He then checks the surroundings to make sure nobody's there, picks up Graeme in the blanket and places him in the boot. He uses one of his personal old silk scarves to create like a gag and then secured his Graham's hands and feet with twine. So he doesn't want him to get out. So he's basically like...
But can he breathe in there?
Well, that's a question. Now, at this point in time, we're unaware what happens.
Right.
But so what happens regarding Graeme and Stephen? What we do know is that Stephen gets back in the car and starts driving towards the Spit Bridge in Sydney's northern suburbs.
Oh, fucking my worst nightmare every day, but yes.
So it was around here that he stopped at a payphone ready to enact the next part of the plan.
Okay.
It's now time to call the Thornes.
Oh, because of course, yes.
Yeah. So at this point, Stephen thinks Basil would be home, but he's actually not. He's away on business.
Yeah, because he was continuing to work.
Exactly.
So Frida would be, though.
So Frida's home. So back at the Thornes residence, police are still getting details from Frida when the phone rings. And this is still around the 9:30-ish time frame. Now, the voice asks to speak to the husband, a voice with a distinctly European accent.
Mm-hmm.
And Frida responds, "What do you want him for?" To which the voice down the line delivers the words she never wanted to hear. "I have your son." Frida almost collapses at this point and hands the phone immediately to the officer next to her, Sergeant O'Shea. And he demands to know who the caller was, and in return the caller asks if he was the husband. In a moment of quick thinking, the sergeant says, "Yes."
Yeah, good.
Calmly, Stephen states, "I have got your boy. I want £25,000 before 5 o'clock today." Now, the sergeant this sergeant was not aware of their lottery win. So naturally asked how would they get that kind of cash?
Yeah, right.
You know, based on where they're living and all that kind of stuff. Stephen, on the other hand, does and demands it. Otherwise, he would feed the kid to the sharks. And this becomes a very iconic comment.
It's interesting because after part one, I mean, I think my mum gets mentioned in every bloody episode. But not that that's a bad thing. But yeah, she said she was a kid during this time and she doesn't really remember much from her childhood, but she remembers this case really distinctly. It was everywhere. She goes, "I can't remember if we had TV at that point, but I just remember hearing everything." And she said, "Oh, and there was all these crazy stories about him being fed to the sharks."
Yeah,
so
and that was because of
why?
this comment. Yeah. So, but and also shark attacks are still very common in the area. So it's still shark army kind of era.
Yeah.
But so that threat's a worrying one. Everyone's like, "Oh, well, there's heaps of shark attacks at the moment." So
Isn't that because there's a whole bunch of sewage in the harbour?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Stephen informed the officer he would be in contact with more details at 5 o'clock.
Okay. But he wanted the money at 5.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
So Stephen was sure they're going to deliver the money. Everything is going as it should. Like, this is hunky-dory, no problems at all. But in his confidence, he didn't know police had been called. And he forgot to expressly state that they should not call the police. Idiot.
But would that really stop anybody?
No,
Maybe?
but like, I think with the Peugeot case, they didn't.
Right.
And that's why the money got transferred, the kid got back, all
Because they just
hunky-dory.
dealt with it in-house.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So when he returned to his car, there was no sign of Graeme stirring in the boot of the car. Perfect. He doesn't have to do anything now. So it's now time to head to the vacant house in Clontarf. So he pulls the car into the garage and he's stoked. It's cool. It's 10 a.m. Happy days. Everything's going
It's
to
the
plan.
7th though, isn't it? So the people are coming in.
Yeah, they're coming in soon. And
Soon.
they were supposed to come between 10 and 11 and they did. So now. So now, once again, what happens now is a bit speculative. We know the
Who are they?
removalists come.
Removalists, thank you.
But we'll discuss all this stuff later.
Okay.
Now, Magda called at around 10:15, so his wife, Stephen's wife, to touch base as she waited to board her plane. And she's not an idiot. Like, she'd lived with this man, knew of his crazy wild schemes to allow them to live well above their means. And she had the gut feeling he was up to something, like one of his usual shenanigans to get more money, but like probably not this.
No.
Or maybe she did. I don't know. I'm unsure about whether Magda knew about it.
She was part of all the other shenanigans in the past. Like
yeah.
she's not like completely innocent in terms of the Blue Mountains hotel thing
Yeah,
and
yeah,
doing all that other
burned
stuff.
it.
Like, yeah, what?
Burned it.
Burned. Yeah, the burn. Yeah.
Now, Bradley assisted the removalists wherever he could. Things may go awry at this point in time because he might have underestimated how anxious the removalists would have made him. And like, obviously, if they walked past the garage door, he might have been freaking out. Like, it's very speculative what he might have been thinking at this point. But he's outside. Yeah, okay, so speculative. Anyway, next part. Now, more experienced police are now called in from a multitude of locations, and a task force is set up at Bondi Police Station. Everyone is shocked and outraged by this crime. Every single police officer basically had their days off cancelled.
Wow.
And they even got involved the local underworld.
Yeah.
including the underworld in King's Cross. Like, I'm not talking like local petty criminals. Like, I'm talking hard ass fucking criminals.
Mr. Reginald?
Mr. Reginald?
Was he involved?
Probably.
Oh, Mr. Reginald
Mr.
is
Reginald.
back. He's back.
Really?
So
which
like
is
they're bringing
ironic
back.
because I thought like they got very outraged by that, but I'm pretty sure some of the underworld at that point in time were responsible for the Luna Park ghost train fires. So like confusing.
Who was who are we thinking? What was his name? I'm thinking about that who his son was on Kitchen Nightmares. The gangster who we think who was considered a suspect behind the Luna Park. Freeman or something like that. No, there's George Freeman. He was King's Cross, but he might have been a bit later. But anyway, there was another crime figure behind who we talked about in the Ghost Train episodes.
Yeah.
And who was a horrendous person, basically.
Yeah. But even like literally this was
So
like,
they're
they
getting
were
people
outraged.
like him involved.
They were outraged. Like it was I can't even tell you the level of outrage in the community over this crime.
Well, I guess it's sort of that prison morality, right?
Yeah.
Like you do not hit, you don't touch kids, you don't hit, you don't do anything with kids because they're kids, like they're innocent, and then so it's probably a little bit like that, right?
Well, especially because this crime had never happened. Kidnapping for ransom had never happened before. So like, who the fuck would kidnap a kid to extort from the parents?
Yeah, and I think the way that we labelled the first episode, the crime that stole Australia's innocence, was very much, it was just felt throughout the Sydney community and even like and wider around the country. It was just huge,
Massive,
huge. So like you said, it's not a surprise that everybody's shocked and appalled.
Yeah. And so during canvasses, some witnesses did come forward to identify a man, Stephen, who they saw in the park opposite the Thornes in the days leading up to the kidnapping. Because back in those days, you kind of know everybody in your area. And they're like, strange man in the park just sitting there.
Just
like
sitting
a weirdo.
watching kids in a park.
Yeah. And the description very closely matched Frida's description of the private investigator.
Yeah.
Now, another witness came forward to say they saw a Ford parked just 100 metres from the Thornes property. And this was Stephen's car, and the witness gave an excellent description of it. And this was the man who had to go around the driver's side door.
Oh,
remember?
Because he had the door open.
Yeah, exactly. So he was one that had to go around. And the witness had taken note of that car because he's like, that's an odd place to park. Why wouldn't you just go a couple of metres down the street to where you could pull over properly?
Yeah.
Like that would be a more logical place. So he probably was like, idiot.
Yeah.
But like remembered the car because it's an iridescent fucking Ford.
That's what I was about to say. It's an iridescent blue car.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah.
And he knew his cars very well to the point that police drove him around sort of like the entirety of Sydney and said, because he's like, it's a Ford Custom Line station wagon. Like, I know what it is. So they drove him around the entirety of Sydney and said, when you see the car it was, pick it out. And he did. He's like, it's that one.
What? Really?
Not his actual car, but like he's like, that's the type of car
That's
it
the
was.
type of
Like, I
car.
know what a Ford Custom Line
Yeah,
is.
okay.
So now it's time to find all the owners of a Ford Custom Line. And there's like tens of thousands of them.
See, I think that's probably that is the one smart thing he's done. He's got a common car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they find that possibly 5,000 of these vehicles might be of interest, of all the tens of thousands of them. And they locate and interview pretty much every one of those owners.
No way.
And this is like arduous, obviously.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of manpower. Now, the Thornes phones are now being monitored, and all points of entry and exit around Australia are also being notified to look out for.
A blue iridescent gogo.
And also like perhaps some guy with a European accent.
Yeah, Istvan.
Yeah. And also like a guy with a fucking 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, he's wrapped in a picnic blanket and a boot though, so.
Yeah, exactly. But remember, once again, this is the first of its kind. So police are basically winging it because they've never had to do this style of investigation.
They're doing a very good job so far.
So good.
Very good job.
So good. And also, another issue with this is there's actually no legislation surrounding kidnapping for ransoms.
What do you mean?
Like there's no law against like specifically kidnapping for ransom. Like there's maybe kidnapping, but that's really all he would get at this point.
Yeah, but that's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not great.
What do you mean? What's the difference between kidnapping for ransom?
I think there's like more crimes. I think there's stuff added to it.
Surely like child abduction carries a pretty hefty weight.
Yeah. But because of the public uproar, there starts to be a push to change the Crimes Act pretty much immediately.
I was going to say though,
Yeah.
it is interesting that they didn't have that at the time.
Yeah.
Like it.
Also, 10 years if Graham's returned alive.
10 years.
Yeah.
Is that what he's looking at in jail?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Not
I'll
good
take
enough,
that.
though. Yeah.
Fun.
So it wasn't long before Frida connected the odd visitor of the private investigator to the phone call because the accent was exactly the same. Because how many Hungarian people is she interacting with?
That's right.
Not many.
Yeah.
Now, the previous incident,
If any.
police are like, oh, that's worrying because that's surveillance. Like, we might be dealing with an organised human. Now, despite the best efforts of police, they wanted this relatively not displayed in the media, the best that they could. Because they were like, we don't want to frighten him away and he hurts the kid or escapes.
Mm-hmm.
We would prefer to keep this as under wraps as we possibly can until we have a plan because like there's no like kidnapping for ransom sheet that we have to follow. Like we're kind of winging it. We'd rather keep it on the down low while we can.
Fair.
Yeah, no, the evening news got a hold of it. And it was sprawled everywhere. So everywhere was feed him to the sharks, like threats to feed him to the sharks and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Breaking, feed him to the sharks. But to be fair, they did advertise a $5,000 reward. Police did. Sorry, police offered it. And then the newspapers upped it to $20,000.
Okay.
So
that's
they added
some good.
$15,000 to the what am I looking for?
To the reward?
The reward. Yeah,
reward?
thank you. The reward money.
It's that's a gift and a curse. Like because it could be now everybody's on the lookout, which is great, but then there could be a lot of leads.
Yeah.
But that's something good that the newspapers did. That's give them that, right?
Yeah. So Basil's now finally awaited, like, come home. They've sort of like they managed to get in contact with him and were like, come the fuck home.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's now sitting by waiting for that 5 p.m. call. But it doesn't come until 9:47 p.m. rolls around. Now, a new detective had replaced Rashia and he answers the phone pretending to be Basil. And he confirmed to the caller, I've got the money. And the caller managed to say, put it in 2 paper bags. But before he could finish the sentence, the detective asked him to wait a moment so he could write it down in order to remember all the details. Now, Stephen wasn't prepared for any interruption or that response. So he mumbles something and hangs up. And Stephen would never call back.
What?
Yeah.
But did they not ask for like proof of life or anything like that?
Well, no, that's all they got into the phone call. He's like, do you have the money? And they're like, yes. And he's like, 2 paper bags. And they're like, let me get a pen. And he's like, oh.
Wow, he's really freaking out, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, I don't think he does well when his genius plan gets interrupted.
Seems like it's going to plan though pretty well for him. He was just literally asked to hold for a minute.
Yeah.
And it all came crashing down.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Now, at this point in time, Basil is pleading. Oh, my God. There's like a video of him pleading for his son's return. It's awful.
No.
It's awful.
No.
And so Stephen is still continuing on his plans, not giving a shit because
he feels like he's owed.
Yeah. So now the next day rolls around and it's here a very important piece of evidence is located on this day. 20 kilometres from Bondi on the Wakehurst Parkway in Seaforth.
Yes.
Not far from Clontarf.
Also one of the most haunted roads in Australia.
Okay, did not know that. Graham's school case is located.
Oh, jeez.
With this bag found, police now scour the dense bushland. Police from like everywhere are now being called in to scour this bushland. They even fly in sniffer dogs from South Australia.
No way, wow.
So good boys and girls of the German Shepherd variety are flown in from South Australia.
Getting on the planes to go sniff it out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
They even get local kids to help in the search, which feels like a recipe for trauma to me.
They did that though. They got the scouts, and we've done other cases. I think with Robin Reed. I think it was Robin Reed.
Oh, it might have been. Yeah,
or something like that. Where
like irresponsible.
They got the scouts in, and they were finding all this. Like, oof.
Yeah.
But hey, if it works, it works. If they're able to find Graeme alive, then great. You know.
So they don't locate any leads on his school case. Somewhere in the vicinity, they do find his little hat, like his little Scots hat.
Yeah.
Now, sightings now pouring in of like Graeme being found in different places, seen in different places, but all are red herrings.
Yeah, that's what I was saying could be the issue with having a $20,000 reward is, you're going to have all these false leads.
Exactly. And now weeks are passing.
Right.
And what is being compiled now is the biggest police investigation brief in the history of Australia.
Wow.
Now, everything is being checked. Even psychic calls are being checked. And detectives and even the Lord Mayor are sleeping on the floor of the Thorns in case the kidnapper calls again.
Jeez.
Yeah. Now, the Thornes then write a letter to the kidnapper and publish it in a paper saying to contact the local reverend and he would organise for the money to be sent to him, no questions asked. Like they would just happily do it as long as Graeme is returned. And now police are beginning to pretend to people, not police. I can't. People are now beginning to pretend that they're the kidnappers to try and extort money from the Thornes. And this is where those really shit people come out of the woodwork.
Gross.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah. And so, and that's where, the worst of the worst come out. Like, I think these people are just as bad.
They're just as bad. They are. They're just as bad. Absolute dogs.
It's now August 6th, 7 weeks later.
Wow. Okay. So that's a long time. Is he... We don't know anything about what's happening with Graeme during this time.
Stephen's never called back.
He's never called back. So what is he going to do? That's all he wanted was the money, and he was looking at houses.
Yeah,
and he was like, "I'm going to come into money." He needed that money soon. So something's gone wrong.
So several kids are playing in a vacant lot in Seaforth. So they range in age between 4 and 8, and that's about 6 minutes from Stephen's home in Clontarf. Now, when I say vacant lot, I don't mean like a flat lot where you would build a house.
Right, okay.
This is sort of on a bit of an angle. Like it's that very ocean landscape. So like rocky outcrops, low-lying sort of sea bushland, at times up to your shoulders. But it's not a place where I would expect kids to play, to be perfectly honest. It's not really, and it's not really a place you would build a house.
Right. So is that why I imagine it's vacant?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but very close to other houses, like still very close to other houses in Seaforth.
Right.
In Clontarf. Now these kids are playing, Seaforth. Sorry. They see something while they're playing wrapped up in a picnic blanket under a ledge. Shit. It's the body of Graeme. Now it's an odd location, like I said, because it's very close to neighbouring houses. It is, but it is very heavily scrubbed with rocky outcrops. And like I said, it does look like the place where kids wouldn't play and people might not necessarily enter. So maybe like a good place to.
So maybe it is a good place, but in that area.
Yeah. What's fucked right now, and this is where I say the media is fucked. Frida found out that Graeme's body had been found on the news. So
were police not contacted?
They were. So police were obviously still there and they're going to tell Frida. Like they're probably on their way to tell Frida, but it got to the news so quickly that Frida saw it on the news first.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's so sad. That's so bad.
Yeah. But now we go into the most revolutionary case in Australian forensic history. Forensics kicks ass. And remembering there's no DNA at the moment. So DNA's out. We've got to use other forensics.
So what? Fingerprints?
Oh, no. This is insane what they do.
Okay.
So Graeme's taken to hospital for a post-mortem and it was observed his arms and legs were bound.
Yes.
And the silk scarf was no longer a gag, but it was wrapped around his neck. He had suffered a fractured skull, and it was determined that this or the strangulation or a combination of both was his cause of death. So the forensic team first examined the picnic rug, and it's an Okaparinga brand picnic rug. Now, the rug was meticulously examined. I saw them with no gloves on, and then I was like, oh, yeah, DNA wasn't a thing. You didn't have to wear gloves. Yeah. And any hair, fibre, seed, debris, anything was collected off that rug. So the hair and fibres were sent to Dr. Cramp, who was the government microbiologist.
Wow.
Now, Dr. Cramp determined one of the hairs was from a dog, but not just any dog, a Pekingese.
Oh, that's right, because they had the fucking...
Had the Pekingese.
No, was it? But it was a shit pug.
Yeah, shit pug.
That's right. Okay.
The shit pug.
So how was he able to do that?
I think because the way, I don't have any idea, but I think probably the way the fur looks.
The fuck, you really have no idea.
Because dogs can be very specific because unlike humans, dogs, the color of dog's hair can change through the strand.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I imagine Pekingese has a certain something or another.
You just sounded so I have no idea, but I can just the way it looked, I suppose. Okay, you just lost confidence so quickly in that sentence.
Look, Dr. Cramp knows what he's talking about. I'm going to go with Dr. C.
That's all that matters. Right. So he was able to narrow it down to a Pekingese, which is, that's amazing.
Well, detectives weren't stoked because if they found a suspect and a similar type dog, he had a similar type dog like a Shih Tzu or
Yeah.
like a something, they had to rule them out because he was so adamant it could only be a Pekingese. Because
But
they
he's
were
correct.
like, yeah, but they were like, sure, coming on the top. Like the same thing where you're like, how do you fucking know it's definitely a Pekingese? And he's like, it's definitely a Pekingese. I'm a microbiologist. Shut up.
I know the way it looks.
I know the biology of micros.
So, right, okay.
All right. So next, a professor of plant pathology,
Sorry? Sorry, yeah. Cool.
Neville White, analysed soil and vegetable matter located on Graham's clothing.
Centennial Park.
Exactly. Yes. But also, we'll get there.
Okay, sorry.
So Neville also analysed some mould samples found on Graham's shoes and determined that they were several weeks old. Therefore, it meant that Graham was likely killed not long after the kidnapping.
Oh, okay.
So Graham was basically killed almost instantly. They're
Okay.
not sure if Graham was killed in Centennial Park or in the Clontarf home.
Right.
So they're not sure which one happened. Then Dr. Vickery, a noted botanist from the Royal Botanic Gardens, is asked to analyse samples of foliage collected from the picnic blanket. Now, 2 plants were deemed to be of significance in this analysis. Now, these were garden plants, not bush plants, which could be explained away by the location where the body was found.
Yes.
So Barbara Briggs also helps her, who's a first-year student. I know everyone's getting involved at the Botanic Gardens and the first to identify the matter, the plant
Get it,
matter.
Barbara.
It was an arduous task because first she had to identify what she thought it was and then meticulously compare it to samples at the gardens to confirm, then exclude any other species with similar characteristics to ensure there was no doubt in the exact species of plant she was looking at. So they're really making sure they're being correct about this species of plants.
That's insane.
What they found was that it was 2 types of cypress bushes. One was relatively common in Australian suburbs. The other was quite rare. But what was even more rare was having these 2 cypress bushes in one place.
Yes.
Yeah?
Together.
Together. That was what would be rare.
Right.
Why are you doing this?
I don't know.
I don't know. He's like got 2 fingers up.
Because they're
and he's
together.
like-
They're
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Then Horace Whitworth,
Oh, my
the
goodness.
curator of the Geology Museum, analyzes soil samples.
Perfect name for what he does.
I completely agree. So he locates pinkish grains of sand that could only be pink builder's mortar. So that's been identified as pink builder's mortar. Detectives then fly to fucking Adelaide in South Australia to investigate the origins of the picnic blanket Graham was found wrapped in. So they go to the Onkaparinga Mills in South Australia to see if they could get the rug identified and then track where it was shipped to.
Oh, my God.
So the rug was one of 3,000 manufactured at the mill between 1955 and 1956.
Yes.
And then from that, they can locate the Melbourne store that sold that particular rug and they head there to investigate further.
To see who
Also,
bought
I
it.
just like saying Okaparinga. It's just
I was
really
going to
nice
say
word
it was
to
a very fun name, I'm sure, but yeah. Didn't want to interrupt.
So what they found was that the
Once.
rug was purchased by a known associate of Mrs. Bradley, Magda, and the man was located by police and interviewed.
Who?
And the man who was the known associate who
Oh.
bought the rug.
Sorry, right.
He informed police that the rug definitely matched the one he had given Mrs. Bradley on the birth of her first child.
Jeez.
So the rug now, the picture of the rug, and the custom line are spread throughout the media to obtain more information.
Just go to the Bradleys. Then you can see, right?
Well, there's not enough information.
yeah,
at
but they
this
can
point in
they
time.
can at least like surely just go to the house, see the custom line. Right?
I think they're trying to get as much information as possible at this point.
Yeah, probably smart.
Yeah. So on August 19, a resident of Clontarf called police regarding a neighbour who had a Ford Blue custom line station wagon, just like the one released to the media. They also told them that he'd moved house on the day of the kidnapping and hasn't been seen since. Now, this is obviously Stephen, and now they can identify who he is. So he's now actually gone back to work at the place he'd taken the leave of absence for to stalk Graham.
Because he was too good for that place.
And he also just needs to earn money now because he has no fucking stream of money.
Yeah.
So what they find is of significance. When they go there, they're like, oh, yeah, no, a Hungarian immigrant works here with a thick European accent. And that man is Stephen Bradley.
Right.
So now they're like, okay, cool. Stephen Bradley sounded like an Australian name. But now we know, no, indeed, this guy has a thick European accent. So like, okay.
But they knew that the ring person who called to the ransom had a thick European accent.
Well, exactly. But
the cop spoke to him.
Yeah, but at that point in time, they didn't know that Stephen Bradley, the person that had been told that, you know, it belongs to this person, they didn't know that he was Hungarian.
Right.
They just assumed that he was Australian with a name like Stephen Bradley. It's not like he's still going by Istvan.
Yeah, fair. Do you want to like say it and don't spray it? Jesus.
Oh, am I spitting?
Oh, mate, it's like I need an umbrella around here.
Sorry.
Fuck, you are, and you're sick too.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this boss confirms that he sold his house in Clontarf, but he's actually moved to a flat in Manly. And indeed, he does own a Ford Blue Custom Line.
And a shit bug.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, cool. So they actually then managed to speak to Stephen at the workplace.
Oh.
And he confirms that, Clontarf, live in Manly, got a Ford Custom Line, but it definitely didn't leave my garage the day of the kidnapping because I was helping removalists. So I just stayed there.
But they only got there at 10.
Yeah. Now, at this point in time, he's only considered a person of interest because there are many persons of interest and police aren't focusing all their attention on him. Because
Smart. That's fair.
But now they've got a pretty good idea of the kind of house the kidnapper might have lived in.
Yeah.
Because it's going to have 2 types of cypress. There's going to be pink mortar laying around, and the owner will drive a Ford Blue Custom Liner and own an Okaparinga picnic blanket.
And a shit bug.
And finally, he'd have a shit bug. So police are conducting inquiries in Clontarf area when they speak with a postie. Posties can often be very helpful.
Oh, they know everything.
Yeah.
They know everything.
Now, he stated he knew of a place with a blue Ford Custom Line. They'd moved out, but he was sure the house had been built with pink mortar, which was very unusual in that area at that time.
Love it.
Love it.
Get it, Posty man.
He also confirmed there were some unusual plants in the garden that looked a lot like the samples police showed him. That house, obviously Stephen Bradley's house.
Yeah.
Now, this is now too much of a coinky dink for it to mean nothing.
Thankfully.
So just because of this excellent forensic work had gotten them this far, it didn't change one very fucking big rock in their way that had just occurred. Stephen had just fled the country.
Ah, Stephen, what you doing, you
fucking
dickhead?
Stephen. Now, police did manage to contact the real estate agent of the flat he was living in Manly.
I was actually going to ask because were they just living in a flat then? Where was
just
Magda?
Stephen. Magda's still fucked off
In Brisbane. In
yeah.
Bris Vegas.
Yeah.
Just living it up in Fortitude Valley.
Yeah, exactly. So the real estate agent confirms he had received a letter from Stephen stating he was going to vacate the property. So they're like, shit. So police attended the Clontarf home. So we're going to go to this fucking Clontarf home and we're going to see what's up. Mm-mm. So they arrived and immediately saw those 2 cypress bushes and immediately saw that house was indeed made of pink mortar.
Bow, bow.
Now, they went into the garage, and in the back of the garage, the foundations are visible. There's kind of like a hole where perhaps it hadn't been fully filled in yet, and you could go into the foundations of the home. So underneath it. So for those who
is
don't...
that where foundations lie?
Yeah. For those who don't understand, it's one of those houses where...
Where the foundations lie underneath the house.
Okay. You're a
No.
You're a
Keep going.
boopy word. You're a...
Keep going.
So it's a bit dilapidated under there, which is odd because the house is otherwise very, very lovely and very stunning.
Yeah.
So as you enter the foundations, directly as you turn to the left, and when you turn to the left, you would be behind the wall.
Yeah.
There was wet clay with pink mortar all over the top of it and general mess and 1 strand of a rug. So that's obviously where he stored Graeme. The neighbours also were spoken to and they're like, yeah, no, they own a Pekingese. So another box ticked.
Tick.
Yep. They also managed to find he'd left the dog at a local vet and he'd informed the vet that he was going to organise for the dog to be picked up and transferred overseas.
To
So
where, I wonder?
So the dog's taken by police and hair's taken from it. Can you imagine? They're doing this little forensic procedure on this dog. And
I could just imagine.
Can't breathe, but
I could just imagine this.
Sorry, Akila just I did that and Akila just woke up and was like, what's happening?
What's happening? What are you doing? What is it calling my people? I could just imagine this little Pekingese in little handcuffs. Hanging I didn't do it. I didn't do nothing.
I'm so sorry. I'm just guilty by association.
Yeah.
And it's obviously identical to what was on the picnic blanket.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So next they attend the
Jeez,
Manly...
this guy knows his Pekingese fur, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. So next they're going to forensically analyse the Manly flat. Now at the side of the flat is a pile of rubbish where they locate 15mm camera negatives. Now for anyone who's young and whatever, cameras back in the day had film and they would have a strip of film that was a negative and then you take that and that would get looked at. So there's now a strip of negative film
to make into photos.
Yeah, exactly. Now they restore these negatives and the best one they could find was a photo of Stephen and his family sitting on nothing other than the Okaparinga picnic blanket.
The Okaparinga. It's
was
always
like,
the Okaparinga that's going to
always
get you.
the Oka.
The Okaparinga's going to get you. It's always the Okaparinga.
Good word, right?
It's a great word.
But like, also, what's the fucking likelihood that what you find at the side of this Manly flat is the one photo of them sitting on the goddamn rug that was used to wrap him in? Like,
I reckon that's just like karma, hey?
yeah.
Okaparinga.
For the win.
Yeah, yeah.
So breakthrough after breakthrough is now happening in this case.
It's obvious.
And they managed to locate the Ford custom line at a car yard because Stephen had sold it. And this is a gold mine of evidence.
Oh, yeah, it would be.
Yeah. Hair, clothing, fibers, all found throughout the vehicle, all which are matched back to Graeme.
Okay, good. That's good.
So now Stephen Bradley's absolutely their fucking
Like, he's
guy.
their guy.
You are locked in.
Did they ever explain how the Graham's case ended up on the Wakehurst Parkway?
He just chucked it.
He just chucked it out on the way
Yeah.
through. Right.
So they now know that he's on the SS Himalaya with his family bound for London.
What's the SS Himalaya?
It's a ship.
Oh, yeah, because like flights and stuff might not
Weren't
have
as
been
common,
Weren't as common.
Yeah.
So he's on the Himalaya going to
Bound
where?
for London.
Oh,
London.
London.
Mr. Reginald.
Mr. Richard, is he going to see Mr.
Go see
Reginald?
Mr. Reginald.
In London? Oh, good old London town.
Now, the Himalaya is due to stop over in Colombo, which was a former British colony of Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka.
Yes, Ceylon tea.
Ceylon, yeah. My engagement ring is a Ceylon sapphire.
Yeah,
Just
the bloodiest of blood diamonds.
I don't think that is. I don't think
Definitely
I don't
not.
think my jeweler would be sourcing bloodstones.
No.
Anyway, so they managed to contact the captain of the ship, who ensures close surveillance is kept on Stephen.
Clever.
Living life. So 2 days after the ship docks, because they're stocking there for a couple of days, in Colombo, police board the ship and arrest Stephen. And he's all like, so innocent. What you talking about? I got no idea.
Yeah.
Now, he insists Magda and the kids continue on to London because he's so innocent that he's going to be
Go
there
on
soon.
without me.
I am but innocent. I have been wrongly convicted.
But go. I shall follow when I can.
When I am rich.
When I am rich and when I have been proved innocent of all charges.
And he's like, I'm going to fight this extradition.
Yeah.
And fight he actually could.
What do you mean he could?
Because Ceylon had become an independent nation and did not have an extradition treaty with Australia at that point.
What about England?
Well, they're not in England at that point.
No, I know, but do they have an extradition pact to England?
Yeah.
So then send him to England and then send him back to Australia.
Well, I feel like maybe at that point in time he might clue on because they'd have to unarrest him.
What are you talking about? I'm
I don't
saying
know.
they can extradite him from Sri Lanka to England and then England to Australia.
Oh, no, I don't think they can to England because it's a former British colony. So they're also like, fuck you, Britain. You invaded us, fuck you. Yeah.
That's fair.
So it's a bit of a shit fight getting him out of there. And after literal weeks of negotiation and honestly the most legal hijinks you've ever heard of, on October 18, extradition is finally granted.
Nice.
So he can come back to Australia. When Stephen finally is on that plane back to Australia, something shocking happens. As the plane is circling Sydney to land, he just turns to one of the detectives and states, I done it. Okay.
So he just said, I done it or I did it?
Done.
I done it.
Done it. Because also at that point in time, like his English isn't great.
No, I know. I'm not having a go at him for his English.
So once he arrived back in Sydney, he's placed in a police lineup. And like Frida comes in and she's like, that guy. Basil comes in and he's like, that guy. But they refused to place a hand on him as requested by the detectives because they didn't want to touch the man responsible for the murder of their son.
Why did the detective want them to touch him?
I think it was like, can you please touch the man who, you know, you believe committed the crime?
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to like giving them a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another witness, the driver who had to avoid him to open the door, also positively identified Stephen.
Good. So he's done fucked now.
Yeah. So an inquest is held into the death before the court case. So that's November 2nd, 1960. And all the evidence is put together and it was determined that Stephen definitely had to stand trial for the abduction and murder of Graeme. Now the trial is a circus. Everyone's like wanting to get into that trial room. Like people like are like out on the streets and everything and like it was hectic.
Yeah.
Like everyone wanted to see him. Now Stephen's lawyers plead not guilty to the charges and everyone's like, okay. Like, okay. Forensics is watertight, but okay. Now, Stephen claims that he undertook the abduction as we have learned, but as he checked on Stephen at 3 p.m. after the removalist left, he was no longer breathing. So he's trying to say, I didn't murder him. He just happened to die in the boot of the car of asphyxiation.
Because I shoved a rag down his throat and bound him.
Also
and
because I
put
hit him
in
over the fucking head.
When did he hit him over the head?
We don't know.
So I didn't kill him. He just happened to die because I did these things.
And that was where the issue came with that head injury, because he's like, oh, maybe he hit it in the car on the spare tire or something like that. And the forensic pathologist's like, nah, like you hit him. A lot of people believe that he didn't intend to kill him. It was like a oh shit moment, but like he still killed him.
Maybe he woke up.
Yeah.
And tried to escape or put up a fight or was calling out and the removalists were around. So he's just like, shut up, you know.
Yeah.
But regardless, that's murder.
Yeah. Well, forensics were like, we're going to disprove that he's suffocated. So they put a breathing machine in the car and ran it for 7 hours and were like, no, there was plenty of oxygen.
Oh, no way.
Definitely didn't.
Okay.
So once again, forensics are like, nah, we're pretty good here. And investigators did believe that he was in fact murdered in Centennial Park and he actually never made it home. And despite his legal counsel's best efforts, after an 8-day trial, Stephen was found guilty of kidnapping and murder.
Good.
And he was sentenced to life in jail.
Life? Does that mean life back then?
Well, it would only be a short life. So he died of a heart attack at just 48 years old after only serving 8 years in jail.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough. And that's, too quick of a way to go out.
Yeah, I agree.
Nah.
And there's, like I said, there was rumours that perhaps Magda might have known about it. Nothing could ever be proven. So there was no way to know. It's just everything is speculation, opinion, all that kind of stuff.
It does seem sus that she never came back from Brisbane.
I agree.
All speculation.
Yeah.
No, we're not saying anything. But it is a bit sus that she never came back. That she left conveniently at the time she did and never thought to come back.
But two good things did come from this case. The first was that legislation was changed to include kidnapping for ransom. So that's now a crime.
Good.
And also now lottery winners are given the option to remain anonymous.
Yes.
So their privacy is now respected as a result of the kidnapping case.
That's good. It's just so tragic that they had to come about because of the tragic
piece of
murder.
shit like Stephen Bradley just trying to abduct him while he's eating his little crisps.
And oh Jesus. But like poor Frida and Basil and Belinda, I don't know the older one's name. I can't remember
off the top of my head.
off the top of my head. But poor Frida and Basil, like those parents did not deserve. We talked about in the first episode, they just seemed like really down to earth, lovely people. They didn't want to. They won the money. It was life changing money, but they didn't want to. They were like, we don't want it to let it. We don't want the money to let it affect
us and our
and who we are
and
everything like that. And that's a real strength of character. And what do they get?
They would have been like so excited. This money was going to change their lives. Like they wouldn't have to worry about sending Graeme to the private school. Maybe they could even send Belinda there. They would be able to get a nicer house and just live a really comfortable. Because remember one thing, it was like she said like when talking about the history of their life, like they never went out to dinner. Like, and if they did, it was a really special occasion.
Yeah.
But like little things like the excitement of being able to go out to dinner every now and then as a family and go to the movies and like do all that kind of stuff.
That's it. And it also just allowed Basil to be more present with his family. And it's just the one time that he was able to, his son was taken from him. By somebody, by this psychopath who had this ego complex that thought he was entitled and deserved this money. And he didn't really care how he got it. And unfortunately, Graeme
paid the ultimate price.
Paid the ultimate price. It's very, very bloody sad. But it is good, I suppose. The good that does come from it is those reforms, that change in law.
And the advancements in forensics and all that kind of stuff was...
Forensics kicked ass
Forensics, Okaparinga. Forensics kicked ass in this one. They did really well.
Yeah.
And this, like I said, this was one of the turn in Australian forensics. It revolutionised everything. And we sort of have become, especially after the Bali bombings, like one of the forefronts of a lot of forensic science.
Yeah. That and burns, I think. We're pretty up there with that as well. Burn technology. It also seemed like, I don't know, is it wrong to kind of think like anything that could have gone wrong for Istvan
Yeah, I think all the things that made him feel so clever were in fact not clever.
They weren't clever, and it all turned it against him. And the even down to the fact that the person who had to swerve out from hitting the driver's door, like that could have been somebody driving who didn't know anything about cars, and wouldn't have been able to pick it out. But it just happened to be somebody who knew their cars and was able to go, it was this kind of car, and I can point it out anywhere. Blah blah blah. And then that was one of the nails in the coffin, and it just happened to be that you were able to get these amazing forensics people, and it all lined up. With that doesn't always happen.
No, absolutely.
And it just makes me kind of in this weird way think, well, maybe Graeme was up there, just going, well, here you go.
Yeah,
pointing
100%.
everybody in the right direction.
Probably everybody up there as well was like, we're gonna fuck this guy up.
We're gonna fuck this. Yeah. You mentioned that the criminal underworld got involved. Do we know what they exactly did, or they were
I think they just were sending out feelers.
They were just
That's
helping
basically what
police
they were
with
doing.
information.
See if they could find anything that police wouldn't otherwise have access to.
Because I was gonna say, with his case being found on the Wakehurst Parkway, surely that would then just narrow it down to the Northern Beaches, right? He was taken
and that's
from,
why I think that's why Seaforth was such a focused area.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's where, but that was only because that's where the body was found, though. But I was gonna say even before
Well, the
that,
Wakehurst Parkways in Seaforth.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like
okay.
all the North.
I'm so hot and sweaty. I'm really struggling.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just saying. Was after the case was found, there was a period of time between that happening and the body being found, Graeme being found, which was happenstance that his body was found at that time. Did the police focus in on the Northern Beaches, or did they keep it a big general Sydney search?
I think they were focused in on the Northern Beaches, but also not neglecting other options.
Right.
Because like I said, that's that sort of bushed area around the Northern Beaches and everywhere around there, and had all of those. And I'm talking like hundreds of people helping out.
Yeah.
So they were really trying to isolate that area.
Yeah. Because if they'd done that, they would have obviously helped.
Yeah.
Very sad story. And that is one of the most important, I believe, one of the most important crimes, like you said, because it's not only is it sad, but a lot of our cases are sad. They're tragic, but this one seemed to have a really big impact on, as you said, forensics and the way that Australians viewed sort of personal security and security of their children. It changed. Nobody quite felt. So once again, from reading and from talking to mum and different people, it's just like after that, nobody quite felt as safe or secure.
Yeah, they took the innocence.
Stranger danger really became. And I know walking to school, we always had those yellow safety houses with the yellow signs and
Neighbourhood watch, which feels in hindsight.
yeah, well, there was a reason why there's no safety houses because it was heavily corrupted.
Yeah.
And they were not safe, some of them. But yeah, they didn't really have that before all of this. But after that, it did. It just changed the thing. So this is a really important case.
Agreed.
Very sad.
Agreed.
Well, I'm going to finish my drink.
Yeah, I got
To
to go.
Frida
I'm
and Basil.
Not feeling well.
Do we know what happened? Just very quickly, what happened with Frida and Basil?
No.
Is that just no because you're like, I need to go?
I'm struggling.
Okay. But we don't know though.
No. I can do a bit more of a look into it, but
Maybe we do a follow-up. We're going to do a shit chat. Right, guys, Alice is going to pass out. So
I'm very close.
we love yous all. We will see you next week. And we hope you guys keep it together. Take care. Take care of each other. Get on their Facebook group. Get amongst the merch. Suggestions,
Q&A,
ideas,
all that
Q&A
stuff.
questions. We're keen to hear from you all. Yeah. And if you know which music video Whoop Whoop Motherfucker come from,
let us know.
let me know. All right. Love you. Take care. See you next week. Bye-bye. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Whoop.